Atiya Ahsan, a sister Zonta from the Mississauga Club. Atiya has been a financial advisor since 1985, assisting a wide range of clients with comprehensive or need-specific financial planning. However, Atiya spends much of her free time as a panelist and keynote speaker at many interfaith dialogue presentations, many sponsored by the Scarborough Missions, an interfaith dialogue arm of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Toronto. She is frequently invited by members of the Muslim community, both Sunni and Shia, to speak at special family events such as weddings, bereavements, and other spiritual gatherings. She is a past member of the Spiritual Care Advisory Committee of the University Health Network, located in downtown Toronto, and of the International Development and Relief Foundation, where she also served on the board for 5 years. Atiya is also called upon to help with conflict resolution and communications for at-risk women, helping them navigate employment and housing matters more easily in their new country. On a personal note, Atiya is married and has 3 grown children. She is a member of the Mississauga Arts Council and strives for continuing personal development through informal and semi-formal education. Ladies, I'd like you to welcome Atiya.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, everybody. First of all, I might as well start with the Islamic greeting, the invocation, which is, I begin in the name of Allah, our God, the beneficent, the merciful. And the greeting is Salam Alaikum, which means may God bless you with peace. It's sort of the same as it's Hebrew for shalom. It's the same thing. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and I've tried to keep things very brief as much as possible. And so as it says up there, this is a very brief overview. And Muslims are very diverse because only 15% are Arabs and the others are all non-Arabs. And the largest Muslim country in the world is actually Indonesia. And then I think India has more Muslims than all of Pakistan put together. And so probably Bangladesh and Pakistan are fairly close in their total population. And I was raised in Pakistan. I was born and raised in Pakistan, and when I touched down at Pearson back on the Labor Day weekend of 1973, I already had a master's degree, and I was married for 9 months, and my husband and I came together. And 2 weeks later, I was volunteering at the Faculty of Food Sciences at UFT because I was a nutritionist in my first career. And it's only because it wasn't working out financially, because all the boomers were too young to care about eating whole grain breads or veggies or all of those other sensible things that I was trying to get them to listen, and they didn't want to. And so far, we still see that, the preventive healthcare aspect, which would save the government a lot of money. And dear God, thank you very much. Other than 3 childbirths and 1 tubal ligation, I've stayed out of hospitals all these years. So, there's reason to act. Anyway, so you've heard these terms. Sunni Muslims, over 85% in the world, and Shia Muslims concentrated mostly in Iran, because Iran is almost 96% Shia Muslim. And then you see things over there, so I won't turn back to look at it. I didn't actually change the slides at all. Sorry about that. So,
Would you like some estimate?
all right, I'll be okay. The key texts and sources of Islam are, of course, the Quran, which is in classical Arabic, and I am one of those lucky girls. When I was growing up, I learned classical Arabic because my dad taught me, and even when the rest of the country did not have Islamic studies textbooks, our school did. And we were required to not just read the Quran, but understand. And even though I was a bit of a late bloomer as far as finishing my first reading of the Quran in Arabic, I was already 13 and I guess fully grown. But the good thing was that in my family, my dad said, look, and his dad before him, that it's far more important to know the meaning of the Quran and to follow it, to incorporate it into your life and in every way. So we did, or tried. So yeah, it says, Muslims believe that the Quran was actually revealed to the Holy Prophet. It was not his writing, because the Holy Prophet actually was, we feel it was part of God's plan, that he was never ever seen writing anything or sitting somewhere reading a book. So that people would say, oh yeah, Muhammad was so-and-so's student. Oh, I know, I saw him reading that book, and I saw him writing this and writing that. It's not because he didn't know how to read and write, because it's our belief that, if, as Muslims, we believe that since he was the lost and final messenger, that it would be like a horrible thing for the person who was to bring this amazing book to not even know how to read, that it was just part of God's plan, that he was never seen. Otherwise, people would say, oh yeah, he wrote it. But in any case, the good thing is that the Arabic text of the Quran is totally unaltered. There is not even a little mark different. Regardless of whether you find the Quran in museums, in Indonesia, or you find it in any store, in any place, the Arabic text is exactly the same. So we can fight all we want as Muslims, just like Christians have all kinds of sects among them or denominations, so do Muslims. But you cannot argue about what is the exact text of the Quran, because it's exactly the same. And the thing is, it's poetic prose. And there's a cadence to it. That even people who are non-Arabs like myself, when I read it out loud, or even if I don't read it aloud, when you see the text, if you can see it, you can hear it, there's a beautiful cadence to it. And since I studied enough Arabic, classical Arabic, God bless my dad, he's still alive, and so is my mom, that, the beauty of the sound of it is also just amazing. And then the other, of course, main source is the Holy Prophet himself, and we just like to call him the Holy Prophet. Of course, as Muslim, Noah, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, Muhammad, they're all prophets from God, and just a little bit later I'll also talk about the story of Adam and Eve. But it doesn't mean that Islam says there was no such thing as evolution. Evolution could also have happened, exactly, because among the Muslim elders, they have said something like, well, it's more like an Arabic expression, that something went on for 70,000 years before Adam and Eve were created. But 70,000 years is not really meant to be a number. It's really just meant to be like a long, long time, or 700,000 years or whatever. So the Holy Prophet's life, and as he lived this, is called the Sunnah. And his words, as recorded by people, are called the Hadith. And so then, in addition, because he had his family, he was married, and his first wife, Khadija, gave birth to his daughter, Fatima. And the children of his son-in-law, Ali, who's also his cousin, and the children of Ali and Fatima, they are the ones that are the source. First, there were the noble companions, and then there are noteworthy scholars. So in terms of Quran, it's the purpose of the Quran and the kind of words that are used. So when it's using the second person singular, it's addressed to the Holy Prophet himself directly. So it's, it'll say, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, O Prophet, and then the rest of whatever. Because there were other people, because this Arabian Peninsula in 570 when he was born, and 610 when he actually was asked to declare his prophethood at the age of 40, that it was a pretty diverse community. There were Jews, there were Christians, there were Magians, there were just plain people who were idol worshippers, or some combination of all of these. And so he was saying that there is only one prophet, and the big cube-shaped building called the Kaaba, which is at the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, was at that time, it had as many as 365 idols in it that some pagan among the Arabs around Mecca used to worship. So he was teaching them that there is only one God, and many of them were not really impressed with that. But anyway, the Quran addresses itself to mankind, so it's essentially sort of say, "O mankind." So then that message is for all of mankind, regardless of who they are. Or sometimes say, "O people who believe," and there is referring to specifically people who actually chose to believe Muhammad as the final messenger of God. There is accounts of the older prophets. And according to Islam, Adam was actually God's first prophet on earth, because you can't have human beings and not have somebody to guide them. And I'll just take like half a minute to tell you about the story, which is that Adam and Eve, yeah, they were created, and yes, they were in the Garden of Eden, and they did make a mistake. They were told not to go near a particular tree. That tree was not the tree of knowledge, but apparently Satan told them, well, if you listen to me, then instead, because you're destined to live on earth, which is going to be very painful, too much work, so if I will show you the path of actually living here in this comfort of heaven all the time. And they just sort of babes in the woods, unfortunately, listened to him, but then, the story about how, when they went near that tree and they lost their garbs of paradise and etc. But they were immediately remorseful. And Eve did not get Adam into trouble. They both made a mistake. They both made a mistake, but they were both immediately remorseful, and they both immediately asked for the kind of language that they could use to express their remorse and to sing God's praise. So in any case, I won't dwell on that anymore at this time. Yeah, and the Quran, of course, has laws and ethics. So everything from you're not supposed to kill anybody, and every chapter, there's 114, we call them chapters, because some of them only have 3 lines, really. But just, let's say it's a shortage or whatever, a shortcutting of just plain language, so you call them chapters. Some have like as many as 286 odd verses, and others 73. And then, of course, there are prescriptions for daily life. So things like talk to people nicely, don't hurt anybody, especially do not kill anyone. Killing one innocent person is like killing all of humanity, and saving one innocent person is like saving all of humanity. So every chapter, as I said, except for one, is prefaced by the words that I first said, which is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful, except this one chapter, which God has actually condemned the troublemakers and the hypocrites who are creating all kinds of, when people create war, riot, insurrection, it is all against Islam. I mean, because when there is no peace, how can anybody thrive? Whereas the purpose of Islam is not to show people how to express themselves to God, but how to create a just, civil, and enlightened society. So that is the purpose of Islam. So yeah, there's lots of prescriptions for daily life. And then the examples that you might be Jesus and Mary. The entire Immaculate Conception of Jesus Christ is recorded in the Quran. And according to the Quran, he spoke in his mother's arms. And it's quite the little speech. But, because those of us who are people of faith, we believe such stuff that it says in the Quran. If somebody else was telling me, I probably wouldn't believe it. But the story of Moses is heaven and hell. And they are really graphically told in the Quran as to what they look like. Alright, so there's a few things that you'll find. I find that this is quite illuminating for a lot of people, the similarities and differences between Christianity and Islam. Yes, we believe in the same one and only creator and sustainer of the universe. And yes, we believe in the Immaculate Conception. There's beautiful, and Mary, she's called Maryam in Arabic. She is the absolutely only woman named by name in the Quran. All the others are referenced by the mother of Moses, the sister of Moses, the wife of the Pharaoh, Lot's wife, Noah's wife, etc. But because it was really important for people to know who was the mother of Jesus Christ, and according to Islam also, that, she was not married to get Jesus, that she got the good news that she was going to be the mother of this child who will grow up to be a major prophet. And we believe that Jesus Christ will intercede for Christians. Pardon? Oh, I thought somebody said something. And we also believe that he will return. And like in the Quran and in the New Testament is full of the word hereafter. But I was noticing that the Old Testament had gone through 450 pages out of the 900 or so, and I had never read the word hereafter once. So January 26th of 2014, I happened to be in the same room as a Jewish professor from Bar-Ilan University in Tel Aviv. And so he spoke for about 40 minutes. It was a somewhat different subject matter, but after the Q&A, I got up and I asked him. Actually, I was one of the people who were responding to what he had spoken about. But I asked him, what's the concept of the hereafter in Judaism? And he said, well, that word does not exist in the Old Testament or in the Torah. So I said, okay, thank you. So there's a similarity between Christianity and Islam, that we believe that there is a book of deeds. In Islam, we believe that we have an angel at our right and an angel at our left. And the angel at the left is told, record everything that this person is doing wrong, but do not record if they're thinking of doing something wrong. And just record one discredit for the things they do wrong. But the angel at the right, because of God's mercy, is told, when the person has good intentions to do something, write it down, because God's merciful, and God wants to encourage people to do good, which is be of service to other people, and withhold their hands and their mouths and whatever else from hurting other people. So, in any case, we believe that Christians are people of the book, which means that the original Bible, which terraform it took, was a real book, and the values taught by Christianity are good, solid values that are also shared by Islam. What are the differences? Muslims don't use the word father for God, because we think that human terminology should not use for God, because it's almost like a form of taking something away, because human fathers can do all kinds of nonsensical stuff. So we don't want to use the word father for God. Even though we understand that it's a way of honoring that Christians use that in terms of love and mercy. And we never ever use the word or consider Jesus Christ. And I know all Christians do not consider Jesus as God, but there are some who do. And we do not believe in the original sin, as I was telling you, that we believe that all human beings are born free and innocent. But yes, we have the capacity to make mistakes. And yeah, I already talked about that. And no, we don't believe in the Trinity. So even though we believe honestly in Jesus Christ and Miriam, and we also believe in the Archangel Gabriel and Michael and Raphael and others. And no, you won't hear any music in the mosques. So then, we're talking about the Holy Prophet, and his title is Rahmatan lil Alameen, which means he's mercy. He's the mercy to all the worlds. So it's not just talking about people on earth. So there is this open concept that there is this humongous universe, and that they could be all kinds of creatures. People, I'm just using the word people, living people who are thinking people, and who also have choices of making good choices. They're not just programmed to do right or do wrong, or to just be like the angels, for example, in Islamic faith. Like angels don't have a choice. Whatever God has told them to do, they're going to do. But human beings always have choice. And actually there's one other kind of creation that most Christians probably don't believe in, but it's definitely a part of Islam, is that there are people who also, like human beings, can make good decisions or bad decisions, and these are called the jinn. And sometimes people have said genie. But they are creatures who are made from different elements than we are. So they are not competing with human beings for the same resources that we need. And we really don't worry about them on a day-to-day basis. But in one particular chapter of the Quran, that's called Surah Ar-Rahman, that is addressed to both human beings and the jinn. And the repetitive line in there, or verse in there, is فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And you two, the jinn and the human beings, which of the bounties of your Lord are you going to deny? Because, God reminds of various bounties, one after the other, after the other, and after the other. And that's the question. There's only one additional question asked, because the Quran has asked tons of questions. Because we consider that the intellect, the ability to reason, is the greatest faculty given to mankind. And so in the Quran, God asks lots of questions to ask human beings to think. Where do they stand on something? So, anyway, moving forward. So while there are many accounts of the life of the Holy Prophet, and of course they're conflicting, but the enduring spokesperson is the Quran itself. Because, as I said, you can argue all you want as to how to translate something or how to, explain some verse of the Quran, but you cannot argue about the verse itself. Everybody has exactly the same language. And so, for example, God has said in the Quran, addressing the Holy Prophet, you are a great example for mankind. So, and we know from his life. And then there's 10 generations of direct family descendants of the Prophet himself. So when you have 10 generations of descendants, then there's enough people who are coming after him who actually live the same life, and they're also there to explain the Quran as the Holy Prophet would have taught it. And then, of course, there are scholars of hadith and history. So just very briefly, I think I already mentioned, he was born in 570 after Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, and he declared his prophethood at year 610. And his family, they were part of the Quraysh tribe, and they trace his family tree back to the prophet Ishmael and then to Abraham, about 21 generations up. And his family, they were never ever idol worshippers. They always believed in the one and only God. And his family, they were also charged with I guess in some ways, the actual, you might say they were in charge of the maintenance of the Kaaba, and the Kaaba, that huge building in the Grand Mosque, was the first house built to monotheism by Abraham and Ishmael. So that's why all Muslims are told, wherever you are in the world, when you're saying your prayers, face the Kaaba, because it's a form of, I guess, unity as well as honoring the fact that first and foremost we have to recognize that we all believe in one God, and that the values taught are the important ones. He, as you can see, he was orphaned early, he lost his mother, and then he came under the guardianship of his uncle Abu Talib and his wife Fatima, and for 30 years his uncle actually protected him, and I mean, of course he was grown up, but and I say social protection, because the pagans of Arabia hated the fact that he was saying, no, don't worship idols. You should only believe in the one and only God. In any case, he was married, he married Khadija, and Khadija was actually, she was a Christian lady, but she was a very scholarly lady, and she was referred to, Khadija here is listening, she already knows that. She was referred to as the Queen of Arabia because she was very, very rich. And she actually proposed to Muhammad. She actually employed him first because people told her, because she was so rich, she had like trade caravans going up and down the Arabian Peninsula and other points. And that with his uncle Abu Talib, this is what the Prophet, as a young boy, had learned to actually, because his uncle also had trade, so they were buying and selling goods. So she actually, and her uncle was actually a Christian scholar in Mecca, and so people told her that this young man Muhammad, his language is amazing. He never hides facts. As a salesperson, he tells exactly what is good about something, and if there's something lacking, he tells that too. So he believes in complete disclosure. And as a salesperson, I also know a little something about it, that it is our duty to let people know what is in something, so whether it's insurance or investments or whatever. So in any case, these are long things. I won't dwell on it. Let's go forward. And because this is something that has come much to the notice, especially because of the war in northern Iraq and Syria, and people need to know what is the depth between Shia Muslims and Sunni Muslims. So let's just say that we're cousins and we are attending two different universities. So our Sunni part of Sunni Muslims are attending what one can call Muslim University, because they believe that after the Holy Prophet, the first four caliphs, out of which Ali, his son-in-law, was actually the fourth of the caliphs, and that they are the main guides. And then after probably more than 100 years, they had four different imams who laid down different forms of Islamic jurisprudence based on their particular interpretation of the Quran and how it applies to daily life. So those are the four schools, the Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali, and Shafi. And in the case of Shia Muslims, you would call it, like, Shia Muslims are fully enrolled at Masumi University. And Masum it's a concept in Shia school that the people who are entrusted with the Holy Book or guidance, so whether it's Jesus Christ or Abraham or Moses, that they are created as special people. So on the one hand, yes, they have human bodies like we do, and yes, they're born and they die, but these are amazing people, and the knowledge that is given to them is given to them just like, when we're newborn, we already know we have to cry to get attention. We know where the food is, and we know many things. at every stage of our life, we know, because some of it is just innate wisdom. But we believe that this knowledge, and so, when I say we, because I'm actually a Shia Muslim. And I'm not just a Shia Muslim because I happen to be born in a Shia Muslim family, but because I think on the next page we'll get to that. But anyway, first on this screen here, we're just looking at that right at the top, immediately below the Holy Prophet, because Ali was about 31 or 32 years younger than the Holy Prophet. And so, and the Prophet's daughter Fatima was married to him. And Ali, for Shia Muslims, is the first of the Imams. So there's no moment, according to Shias, where earth has no guide appointed by God. And so in the case of Christians, Jesus Christ is alive, and you all know who have a spiritual relationship with Jesus Christ, that he will guide you. And that when you put in a request, of course you can always request God directly, but because many of us, because of that other relationship, because of our love of Jesus Christ, or our love for the Imams, that we will say, please, pretty please, could you intercede on my behalf? Could you take my file a little further than my sinful head and heart can take it? So it's a request for, a bit of a please help me kind of an approach. Because God is the source of all blessings. And our 12th Imam is living, but hidden from our eyes, just like Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ, in the eyes of Muslims, has been alive for 2,000 plus years. And our 12th Imam has been alive for more than 1,000 years. But the thing about the Imams is that they are never ever trying to get temporal power. They never want to amass wealth. They are never ever arrogant. And if you were sitting in their company, and there are a couple of books, like I didn't bring the Nahj al-Balagha today, but I have one of the books. And this is a book of supplications, and it was translated from the classical Arabic by William Shiddick, with guidance from Professor Syed Hussein Nasr, who is at George Washington. He's a professor emeritus at George Washington University. And if you want to have tears of humility and peace running down your face when you're talking to God and putting in your request, this is the kind of book that you want to read. And you want to read it just slightly so you can hear your voice. Because I know the only thing is that it uses like thee and thou, which for people like it seems a little strained. But I have actually done some sort of like standard North American English adjustments of William Shiddick's beautiful work. And these supplications are supplications of our fourth Imam, great-grandson of the Holy Prophet, and his name is Zain al-Abidin. In any case, moving on. And so the 5 pillars, the first one is the Shahada, which means I bear witness that there is no God except God, and that Muhammad is his last and final messenger of God. So, so that's the Shahada. And then 5 daily prayers. All Muslims believe in 5 daily prayers. And so the first one is before sunrise, but after the first crack of dawn. And the second one is once the sun has reached its zenith, its highest point. And then the second afternoon prayer is when the sun is low in the afternoon sky, or let's say when the shadows are twice the length of the object that's placed on the ground. And then there's one right after sunset, and one when the sky is dark. And they're not long prayers. The obligatory part of the prayers, they added to no more than half an hour in 24 hours. But we also have like a ceremonial quick wash, like our hands and faces. So yeah, so the 5 daily prayers, same thing for all Muslims. But it is true that many times Shia Muslims are more likely to combine their afternoon prayers, and it's especially in the winter months in Canada. I mean, the afternoons are so short. Chances are most Muslims who just for practical reasons combine their afternoon prayers, and also in the winter time, chances are they will combine their evening prayers also. But you're allowed to combine them. It's actually, I think it's much better if, like in the long summer days when the afternoons are so long, to save the early afternoon and the late afternoon separately. Because as Stephen Covey said to a group of some of business people in the Middle East, he said, it's like Muslims saying their prayers 5 times a day is like running your antivirus 5 times a day to make sure that you have no bad intentions. And then you all have friends, about fasting during the month of Ramadan. And fasting doesn't just mean that you stay hungry and give some money to the poor. Because the very purpose of fasting is, of all acts of worship in Islam, is to come closer to God. And we can't come closer to God if you're going to be arrogant, or if you're going to be just negligent of our duty. And then you also heard about the Hajj. Oh yes, to complete the fasting part. So the idea is that by doing good things, sharing of ourselves, and asking for forgiveness, that at the end of the month of fasting, when we have the day of celebration, Eid al-Fitr, that God has promised that if you really follow the reason why there is fasting, then it's as if you were born as free of sins as you were when you were a newborn child. So but of course you know that every time human beings behave in civilized ways and share and are humble, is good for all of society. And you're also supposed to spend money and buy stuff because it helps the economy. And the Holy Prophet said, don't spend some money every day because what's an expense for you is somebody else's livelihood. Anyway, so looking at the Shia side of the things, because Shias divide the principles and the practices. So I'll show you this picture that I made many years ago. And I wasn't able to make a good graphic, digital graphic for it yet. Because these are the principles that, yes, there is only one God, and that not every act of God or every provision that God has made is at least based on justice. As a matter of fact, most of God's actions our intent is all based on mercy. And if you just think about it, look at all the things that work inside our body all the time. What do we have to do? I said, follow good, sensible ways of doing things. So the prophets, the holy books, and in the case of Shias, imams. Because imams are really important because they were people who had amazing knowledge. And this other book that I didn't bring today, Nahjul Balagha, it's a compilation of the letters, sermons, and sayings of Ali. And if you were to read his letter when he appointed his good friend Malik Ashtar as the governor of Egypt, and how he said how you should run government, how you should treat the different people in society. It was actually presented at the UN, and they said this is an amazing document because the principles are the principles, and they're true, even today. Anyway, so the very important thing about these is that as a Shia Muslim, you are not allowed to believe in them because somebody else said so. That's very different, yes. And soon, that we are supposed to use our intellect in whichever way we see fit to believe in these. You are not allowed to follow somebody in this matter. And then, very briefly, at the top are the things that our Sunni brothers are put as, you're supposed to say your prayers and all of this kind of stuff. But This big trunk is where the rubber meets the road. It's all those interpersonal relationships. And the very first revealed verse of the Quran was, read. Read in the name of the Lord, your Lord, who created you from just a little clump of cells. So Islam is not knowledge. And just very briefly, yes, these rights are written in the Quran. Women's rights 13 centuries ago, that women have all of these different kinds of rights. And a marriage contract is a contract. It's signed by the spouses. And it lays out a number of important things. I think I'm getting towards the end. Job. I think that was really important. This is a concept. It is not a piece of fabric. Yeah, I mean, it has unfortunately been a travesty to just consider it as a piece of fabric. It's really, all the things that you would hope by way of prevention of all kinds of sexual harassment, indecent acts, you name it. It's meant to prevent all of those things, and men, it applies equally to men and women. Because how could this happen? How could we keep women safe unless men were charged with behaving so that all of these things come to happen? I think one thing that we didn't talk about at all, just very briefly, is, and I will just use one sentence about it, the word jihad. Jihad actually, first and foremost in Islam, if you really get it, it means a commitment to nonviolence. Because the number one purpose of jihad is to subdue our own bad habits of melting off, striking, hitting on the idiotic and ignorant stuff that you see people doing, because these unfortunate people have caused, look at the mass migration of people out of Syria and Iraq. Horrendous. How can anybody claim any form of being a faith when they commit such crimes against humanity? This has nothing to do with Islam. And these are the most ignorant people you could think of, and they're also the most savage. And I don't like to use very strong language, but I can tell you that any Muslim of conscience will tell you we abhor this. This has nothing to do with it. And the worst of the people who behave like this, as Allah has said in the Quran, سَيَعْلَمُونَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Soon the unjust ones will know where they're going to land up, and that's the hot place.
So, Atiya, on behalf of both the Zonta Club of Hamilton 1 and 2, it is my greatest pleasure to thank you graciously for your time this evening and sharing your insight. You have definitely enlightened us all about the religion of Islam, and we really appreciate you being here this evening. I believe our president needs to be card. I'm proud to see you, so thank you.
I think just 10 seconds to tell you that according to Islamic belief, Jesus Christ and a descendant of the Holy Prophet, whose name will be Muhammad, will together create the kingdom of God and bring peace on earth. So that is part of our purpose. So that's all for a reason. Jews, Christians, and Muslims have to work together. We're the biggest faith groups in the world. We need to work together and to show love